Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, let me greet you on the occasion of the 65th birthday of the Estonian Open Air Museum and wish that the following 65 years would abound in similarly excellent results and professional successes. I also congratulate to the organizers of this conference, as they have chosen a topic which is very relevant and is of key importance from the aspect of the future of open air museums. A few weeks ago, at the 30th Congress of AEOM, that is the Association of European Open Air Museums, held in Stockholm, Henrik Zipsan, well known for many of us, provoked the open air museums with an appropriate subtlety but firmly. He emphasized that the secret of success for open air museums lies in authenticity, which is manifested in the material, structure and form of relocated or reconstructed buildings, and in the presented interiors, life sense and family stories. As he said, ordinary stories about ordinary people for ordinary people. At the same time, he drew attention to the fact that due to different professional and political reasons, a kind of romanticism and idealism can be traced all around Europe, which leads astray. In the majority of open-air museums, exhibitions are represented which are homogeneous from the aspects of ethnicity, religion or identity. In these, there are no conflicts or ethnic groups in conflicts. Let me tell you an example. A few years ago in Poland, a colleague from a Polish museum proudly announced that they furnished the Lithuanian building representing the significant minority of the region. This is not a problem itself, of course. The problem is that although at their original location, Polish and Lithuanian buildings appeared side by side in the streets of the settlement, they physically segregated this otherwise valuable exhibition in the museum as an enclave as opposed to the homogeneous Polish village, as they did not want to disturb the homogeneous ethnic picture, considered to be solely Polish. What do you think? Is it the right way to represent the authentic solution? It is well-known fact that there were three waves of founding and building up open-air museums, but I won't elaborate on this subject now. I would like to emphasize that Eastern Europe joined the museum developing process quickly with a very short lag time. It was stated in several papers that Western European colleagues were wowed by the giga projects of Eastern European Skansen, financed. For me, Skansen means open air museum, financed and supported by their state. However, the ambitiousness of settlement concepts resulted in skepticism besides wonder because of the sustainability of these large-scale projects. In Eastern Central European countries, which were due to their historic development, basically agrarian societies, the representation focused on and has been focusing on the architecture and way of life of peasantry and the agrarian workers ever since. I hold on this opinion despite the fact that there are urban exhibitions units, for example, in Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, or other places. It was characteristic for Eastern Europe that by the foundation of their skansens, they wished to create national cultural attractions having an important role in strengthening identity, since these countries started their independent nation-state existence after breaking away from the Russian Empire, split up Poland, or the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. It is not by chance that early skansens were formed with help from governments, or for example in Bucharest, for the impetus of the king by providing serious financial assistance. Following World War II, East Central Europe got into the communist Soviet Union sphere of interest, and ideological influence prevailed in this period too. On the one hand, communist propaganda exploited skansens as the local for demonstrating its peculiar worker-peasant ideology. on the other hand, used the open-air museums for promoting socialist way of life conceived by themselves. For example, in Kiev, the lifestyle model of the socialist agrarian workers of the 1960s, 70s were represented in the local skansen. At the same time, we also experienced that nation-states under Soviet influence as an expression of inner resistance and as opposed to the all-permitting internationalism, presented their own national culture and identity with the help of their skansens. Regarding this period a bit more critically, these new nation-states, in their fervor to strengthen identity, often forget their ethnic diversity and underrating population numbers and cultural influence hardly or never presented minorities living in their territory. Every new nation state strives for linguistic and ethnic homogeneity and subordinates museum representation in their skansen for this goal. This is not a modern attitude. These museums became truly popular, had several 100,000 visitors. Moreover, they turned into locales of state representations. Concerning relocation, rebuilding, interior furnishing, scientific research and work, they did not lag behind the forefront of the profession. The system of craft presentation and folklore festivals emerged, where authentically clad professional or amateur players displayed for thousands of visitors the way of life, craft forms, traditions, and holidays of past times. A strong national romanticism was to be felt at the time, which presented peasant life as a kind of model with romantic devotion, and visitors reacted with happy excitement since they experienced their own, their parents' or grandparents' traditions firsthand, and it was so easier to like comparing to the grey, unifying products of the communist period, overshadowing national character. As East Central Europe, concerning European development history, lagged behind the changes of more developed territories concerning economy, industry, society and culture, thus the skansens of the discussed region were rested on their laurels and worked according to their well-known methods for a long time, as long as the beginning of the 2000s. At the same time, in Western Europe, at the mid and the late 1990s, the signs of crisis appeared. Popularity declined, visitor number decreased, economic crisis appeared, sustainability became difficult. The profession, the audience, and the maintainers pressed for change. The ideology of this change was formulated by the director of the Skansen in Stockholm, Anja Böstrand, as follows, citation, "Nothing can better capture the interest of visitors than that which is directly connected with their own experiences. This is why such contact is of vital importance to the museum. It is dangerous for a museum to come too far from the reality of today." What does this mean concerning our topic? The first Skansen, founded in 1891, is the product of the late 19th century with the main goals of safeguarding the buildings and material culture of the quickly decaying culture, rural culture for prosperity, creating new ways of presentation for ethnographic museology, and providing experiences and the chance to learn for national and international visitor audience, all of these in an easily comprehensible, democratic and diverse way. The secret for the Skansen successes is experiencing the so-called Skansen feeling. The visitor recognizes the cultural phenomena of the recent past in buildings, interiors, objects and folklore phenomena, and this fills them with positive feelings. Visitors can experience and understand what they see. The Skansen thought spread all over the world and had an unbroken success till the late 20th century. However, in the meantime, more than 100 years have passed, and at least 4 free generations came and went, and museums started to recognize, first in the West and later in the East, that for younger generations, the late 19th or the early 20th century doesn't mean anything, only an interesting rarity, weird and incomprehensive objects and tools. They did not understand expressions, life situations, behavior patterns. For example, I should like to refer to the fact that in Aarhus, Denmark, the museum had to organize an interpretive exhibition for the visitors to understand the tales of Hans Christian Andersen. Even parents and grandparents did not understand the meaning of objects, let alone their functioning. The personal experience of reliving the past disappeared. Dutch or German 19th century peasant way of life or an object did not mean more for the present-day visitor than the curiosity-like material surroundings of Bushman people in the Kalahari Desert. Moreover, the task of the museum in international museology has also transformed. Frontier communication between the museum and the visitors has become outdated. Museum visit has been democratized. Accessibility to culture and equal opportunity have turned to be keywords, and museums started to be involved in a competition with other players of cultural life outside the museum sphere for increasing visitor number and income. Visitors demanded from the museum to be local for dialogue. Notions like social museum, solidarity museum appeared. Besides, there was a growing demand for participating in non-formal education programs. Museums played an important role in lifelong learning processes. Change was imminent. The Western European Museum did precisely this, and the outline for the actions were to be traced in the essays of the conference volume published after the 2001 AOM conference in Szentendre. They had to deal with the museum settlements concept to expand in space, time, and topic. Spatial expansion meant that the phenomena from outside the border of given country or region appeared. For example, representation of Irish, Italian, or Hungarian living in diasporas. Expansion in time meant that the time period of museum representation in Skansen was pushed in the pre-2000s. Thematically, besides peasants, the presentation of urban culture and other social segments migrants appeared. Moreover, the religious and ethnic diversity gained more emphasis in these institutions. It is of great significance that museums exceed the detailed representation of the 18th, 20th century way of life and take part in the processing of the great historical cataclysm like Nazism, Holocaust, colonial empire, segregation, intolerance, and so on. Conducting a liberating dialogue with the audience, treating them as adults. Representation has transformed concerning both the layout, the methods and tools. In many cases, museums break with the exclusivity of interiors and, among others, audiovisual tools gain importance in interpretation. By applying first-person singular or third-person singular or third-person singular interpretation, we create living museums, a concept in which actors are clad in authentic costumes, using authentic language, present the message of the given exhibition. One of the most important goals is storytelling. Visitors hardly read, but tend to listen to information and also would like to participate. Thus, knowledge and message formulated by the Skansen becomes understandable. And surprise, surprise, in a few years, museums managed to stop the decrease in visitors' number, did not have to close down, and Skansens became the most popular museum institutions again, from Ireland to Finland, from England to Switzerland. Of course, this has not happened without problems. There have been heated discussions in the EOM ever since. Scandinavia, the Benelux states, and the Museum of the British Isles, and Tallinn, Szentendre, or sometimes Sibiu are the examples. In one hand, Germans, Austrians, and the whole Eastern European on the other side. as if skansen of our region have not woken from their sleeping beauty dream and tried to overcome the crisis with hesitant steps. What constitutes the crisis? The central financial subsidy of museums previously having been built with government help decreases, the number of visitors decreases, and parallel to that, income also decreases. The conservative attitude suggested by Germans still holds, and even grand folklore festivals, singing contests become schematic and lose the interest of the audience. I should like to mention an example concerning my museum. Hungary celebrated the 1000th anniversary of its statehood in 2001, during which national monuments were erected and celebrations were held even in the smallest settlements. These people wearing folk costumes had the chance to perform as a kind of national decoration. As a result, modernizing Hungarian society became fed up with the folk, and in the following year, in 2002, we lost more than 30,000 visitors, although we did everything in the same way, through planning as in previous years. Folk culture as a national setting had a controversial effect on society compared to the intention of the organizers. That was a real great lesson to us. It is not enough anymore to maintain several hundred-years-old beautiful buildings or provide craft shows with authentically clad artisans or recall certain elements of folk gastronomy. East Central Europe also undergoes the process of democratization. The societies become more and more open. The demand for an innovative new skansen is stronger and stronger. Folk romanticism is over, which characterizes our region's open-air museums to a great extent. In the valuable old houses, beautifully painted furniture and model-like interiors await visitors, suggesting that this was a harmonious period in the given nation's history. No dirt, no tragedy, no problem can be traced, which on the other hand was a natural part of people's life. We hardly ever or never speak about Roma or Jewish people, the peaceful or not so peaceful coexistence of different ethnic groups. There are no mixed marriages, people losing language, identity or faith. There is no dunghill, the buildings are no derelict, the grass is green. All in all, everything is perfect, harmonious, fitting the landscape. People can feel romantic and daydream. But I ask you, did not peasants live through World War I or World War II? Were not there women raped by the soldiers of the Soviet army? Were not Hungarians or Germans evacuated on the basis of collective responsibility? Were not rich peasants evacuated? Were not there physical violence and terror during the establishment of the Soviet-type kolkhoz? Or did not the revolution of Hungary or the Polish in 1956 or the Czech in 1986 influence the peasant population of these regions? Was not more migration? Was not there settlement into block flats? Or could I ask whether we can present in our skansens how the liberation from communist regime in 1989-1990 or recapitalization influenced peasants in the region? In my opinion, museums of our region partly do not want or cannot answer these questions. Maybe societies are not mature enough to raise these issues and actively find answers to them. So I state again, it is not enough for our institutions to emphasize national or folk romance in their exhibitions and communication, and it's not enough for visitors to see dancers and singers in costume or craftsmen separated in workshops, and it's a fortune scenario if, apart from purchasing, the visitors are let to participate. We need more. Our skansens have to participate in social dialogue and mediation of culture with determination and strength, helping and assisting the more and more undereducated generations in answering the increasing number of frustrating questions. What are these exactly? National, religious, or personal identity? gender issues, tolerance, acceptance, accepting linguistic, culture and different kinds of otherness, protection of the environment, eco-thinking, reorganization of disintegration, micro-communities, or strengthening of social network protecting the individual. Migration, deterioration of villages, crisis of values. These are issues of enormous importance. I believe that Skansen, which are the most exciting and best equipped public collections and museum types, are appropriate for this renewal. That it is the normal way of thinking is proved by Western European, American and Australian museum projects with institutions who were able to undertake the new role. I am convinced that all conditions are at our disposal in Eastern Central European museums. However, we have to transform our attitude, we have to transform our beliefs and our international network. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I think that the above mentioned prove my and my institution's attachment concerning the change of paradigm in connection with Skansen-type museums. We in Szentendre have organized several exhibitions from the topics of great social traumas. An exhibition of violent, that is the map of the museum, exhibition of violent relocation following World War II, set in the back part of the dwelling house from the southern Transdanubia, was a pioneer initiative. As a result of the pact in Yalta, several hundred thousands of German language population were resettled from Hungary on the basis of collective responsibility, a truly anti-democratic principle. Into their place, Hungarian settlers from Bukovina were put who previously had to flee their homeland in the Eastern Carpathian region because of the Romanian violent assimilation activity. The forced movement of several hundred thousands of people, tragedies, pain, broken families, trauma spanning over generations characterize this period and the consequences. Illustrative maps, shocking oral history, fear penetrating our present-day society, still binding old witnesses, dramatic effect, these were the responses of visitors. Was it also like this? The village is not just the previously seen local idyllic life world, ask visitors. And when students take part in a museum education program and have the task of selecting and compacting the most significant object of their life into 20-kilogram package, it became immediately clear as the result of shock what a similar trauma was like. The exhibition was followed by, in the same regional unit, the representation of the system of the only child in Charkers, when was a consequence of the ruthless inner regulations of the peasantry, conceiving several times was prevented violently, or the unwanted children were killed so that the land would remain in one hand. We represent it in a house which represents one of the most outstanding and decorative regions of Hungarian folk art, as furniture, painting, costumes and embroidery are all very famous. The constitutes of a contrast of visitors to be able to see how dark human fates and processes influencing community can be found behind irrational garnish and decoration. The following exhibition with a similar topic is about the forced labor of Hungarians in the Soviet Union. During 1945-46, when the Soviet Union invaded, or as we called it previously, liberated Hungary, Hungarian young men and women were collected in a great number with the justification that they are taken for a small work, malenki robot, in the territory of Hungary. Instead, their share was forced labor in Siberia for several years or death. Visitors are taken aback while stepping on the railway sleepers, of the wagons evoking the gulags with the names of Russian labor camp locations written on them. Skansen suppress this historical cataclysm, although violence committed by the invading Soviets live in our grandparents' generation as unworkable traumas up to the present. My colleague and friend Miklós Cseri will talk about tomorrow about our exhibition Farewell to the Peasantry in detail, representing with effective museological tools the painful and irreversible passing away of the peasant layer constituting the majority of the Hungarian population. This issue pushed a few buttons by the new generation, as in the closing part of the exhibition, in the barn, a rope hanging from the beam evokes the reaction of thousands of peasants committing suicide in their total despair. Following this exhibition, I received several protesting letters, according to which similar scenes cannot be displayed in Skansen. See the demand and misconception of romanticism and idyllic harmony, and also broach the fact that we left out the age rating of the exhibition so that children would not get shocked. Apart from these, we have exhibition on the topic of Jews' place and the role of inside the village society, or we represent the communist terror of the 1956 revolution with the help of flash mobs and the participation with living history actors. We react to social mobility following World War I, the role of paupers and outcasts in the village, the acceptance of the peripheral status of people living with different disabilities. There is an exhibition on the changing roles of women, handling peasant sexuality and gender otherness in the village. The essence of this attitude is the strengthening of the museum's authenticity. We would not want to display illusion, false romanticism, social homogeneity, or idealized peasant world for the visitors, but all those happenings and events which accompanied the life of Hungarian rural population in the 20th century in reality. According to our intention, we put a stronger emphasis on the forced socialist transformation of agriculture, the negative effects of the cooperatives. We look for the reasons for losing identity in the rural societies and the reasons why the flourishing village is empty and why young people move to cities or abroad. In this process, I consider the opening of the Transylvanian building complex on the 19th of May this year as a huge step. 103,000 square kilometers with the population of 2.5 million Hungarians were transferred to Romania after 1920. We want to find out what kind of strategies the Hungarian population forced into minority status worked out in the last 100 years so that they can retain their identity. And we also want to find out what factors led to the halving of the population number in the 100 years. The base this issue on thorough objective research work representing the finding without political and national overtones, displaying all aspects of phenomena. Let me mention an example. In Körös-Tarkány, in Romanian Tarcia, members of the Romanian half-military organization killed 120 Hungarians in April 1919. The fact itself is represented with the help of a shocking naturalistic interior, recalling the moment of devastation. At the same time, in the same building, we present what kind of mistreatments were committed by Hungarians against Romanians in previous years. Moreover, we commemorate the Romanian Pope from the neighboring village who provided shelter for escaping Hungarians during the hecatomb. All aspects are to be presented authentically on the basis of professional historical facts, leaving out emotions. This can be our true calling. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I am convinced that Skansen-type museums are the most exciting, most adventurous, and most interesting form of museums in the museum world. They are truly popular and successful thanks to the fact that with its complex tool kit, it does not only provide experience, but educate and motivate for learning in the most authentic way. To be able to protect this popularity and authenticity, we have to change our methodology and have to follow demands and expectations of our renewing and democratizing society. We are in the service of the society and communities which maintain us, and we mediate values for them which are appropriate for improving their quality of life. I wish every success for everyone to be able to realize this task. Thank you for your attention.
I actually wanted to ask about the time horizon in these exhibitions, because I got an impression that you're mostly dealing with the first part of the 20th century. It was the flash mob from 56.
Yes.
But are you also coming, further to the 60s, 70s?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And there is a new plan, a new project. The curator will be Zsolt. That is about the 20th century village. So because the canon of the traditional ethnography said that ethnography is until the First World War. I think it's not true. So we think that we have to show and we have to present what's happened with the village and the village people between 1920 until nowadays. That's the new goal or new target of our research.
Thank you. Thank you all three presenters for the very interesting papers, and thank you for your questions.